Hello everyone, welcome to the Tim Booker channel. I hope you enjoy listening to books. Today, the book I'll be interpreting for you is Lights Out, with the subtitle, Pride, Delusion, and the Fall of General Electric. This corporate biography tells the story of the American industrial giant, General Electric, GE, not in terms of its rise but rather its epic decline over the last 20 years. It's almost akin to a GE version of a Great Fall. During GE's heyday, its presence in American society resembled Samsung's in South Korea, ubiquitous. As described in the book, GE's industrial machinery powered the electrical grid, lighting up American homes and kitchens. Its engines propelled American fighter jets, commercial planes, and even Air Force One through the skies. Its financing supported McDonald's franchisees and leased locomotives across North America. Its ultrasound images were delivered to expectant parents, its X-rays revealing fractures, and its MRI scanners scanning human organs to pinpoint tumors. Americans grabbed snacks from GE-manufactured refrigerators and settled back on couches to watch TV shows like Seinfeld and Friends, also made by GE. GE wasn't merely a company, it was more like an institution deeply ingrained in American society. It held financial credit and trust akin to the U.S. government, with its corporate bonds enjoying a long-standing 3A credit rating and consistently topping Fortune's list of most admired companies. In 2000, GE's market value neared $600 billion, making it the highest valued company in the U.S. However, as great as GE's past was, its subsequent decline was equally staggering. Given GE's position in American industrial history, its fall carries profound implications, symbolizing an era's conclusion. After reaching its peak market value in 2000, GE plummeted, and by 2018, its total market value was a mere $60 billion, a mere tenth of its peak. In 2018, GE was ousted from the Dow Jones Industrial Average, replaced by the American pharmacy chain Walgreens. It's noteworthy that over a century ago, GE was among the original 12 components of the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Being ousted from the Dow was perhaps one of GE's most shameful moments in history. So, what happened to GE after 2000? Unlike Nokia or Kodak, GE wasn't left behind by a revolutionary leading technology. Until recently, GE remained a world leader in areas like aviation engines, turbines, MRI equipment, among others. Moreover, GE seemed financially sound, continuously acquiring quality assets worldwide. Between 2001 and 2017, GE averaged 46 mergers and acquisitions annually, with a total deal value of $35 billion per year. One of the most famous acquisitions was the $14 billion purchase of Alstom's power business in France in 2015. However, these acquisitions didn't notably uplift GE's performance. Externally, GE seemed like a giant inexplicably aging rapidly. This book aims to unravel this mystery. Written by two senior journalists from the Wall Street Journal who extensively covered and accumulated a wealth of first-hand information on GE, it reveals many previously unknown insights. As layers of facts unfold, the truth becomes thought-provoking. Next, we'll dissect this analysis into three parts. 1. Why did the 9/11 event impact GE's business model? 2. How did the Enron scandal raise public doubts about GE's integrity? 3. Why did GE's move to divest from finance and return to industry end in failure? Part 1. If you've read media coverage on General Electric, you'll notice the most common attribution for its decline is often linked to the capability of succeeding leaders. Indeed, looking at the timeline, the turning point for GE's decline coincided with a change in its CEO. In November 2000, the legendary CEO of American business, Jack Welch, officially announced his handover to the next CEO, Jeff Immelt. Jack Welch served as GE's CEO for a solid 20 years, steering GE to its peak. His implementation of the Six Sigma standard and the number one or number two principle became ironclad rules in the business world. Immelt was handpicked by Welch from dozens of candidates and was anticipated to continue the legacy. However, during Immelt's tenure, GE went from bad to worse, falling from grace. Some argue that Welch misjudged Immelt, portraying him as all talk and no action, unfit for the role. Conversely, others believe the seeds of the downfall were sown during Welch's era. Some of Welch's practices led GE astray, creating deep-seated issues that Immelt struggled to reverse. Still, some believe both are culpable. Immelt failed to dismantle the hazards left by Welch's era and exacerbated them further, such as excessive reliance on financial business and extensive, unrelated diversification through mergers and acquisitions. Who should bear the blame remains inconclusive. Let's delve into what transpired after Immelt took the reins. Unfortunately for him, luck wasn't on his side. In September 2001, just days into his new role, the 9/11 attacks occurred. The planes that hit the towers were leased by airlines through GE, and the World Trade Center, where the attack occurred, was insured by GE's insurance arm, signifying colossal insurance payouts. Additionally, widespread airline shutdowns directly impacted GE's aircraft leasing, aviation engine component, and maintenance revenues. GE estimated direct losses from the 9/11 events at $600 million. Furthermore, there were long-term effects. The 9/11 attacks had fundamental impacts on the U.S. economy, affecting various GE business lines from power to plastics and credit, making it challenging for the company to maintain its growth targets. However, for Immelt, the most significant impact of the 9/11 events wasn't the direct economic losses or long-term performance goals but the erosion of public confidence in GE's uniqueness in its business model faced public scrutiny for the first time. What exactly was GE's unique business model? Unlike other U.S. industrial conglomerates, what made GE unique was the dual engine of finance and industry. In Welch's era, GE wasn't purely an industrial enterprise but resembled Japan's conglomerates like Mitsubishi or Mitsui, a group of related companies sheltered under a big bank. This bank was GE Capital, covering insurance, credit cards, real estate mortgages, aircraft leasing, and more. For a significant period, GE Capital ranked as the seventh largest U.S. bank, contributing more than half of the group's total profits. Interestingly, GE's unique business model might be linked to its corporate DNA. In official GE propaganda, its founder was hailed as the great inventor Thomas Edison, emphasizing the company's research and manufacturing genes. However, the true architect of GE was a financial tycoon, J.P. Morgan. At that time, Edison's GE was in financial turmoil and was acquired by Morgan. Morgan merged several electrical companies he acquired and Edison's company to form the GE Group. Edison himself briefly served on GE's inaugural board and soon sold his GE stocks to fund his laboratory, disconnecting himself from the company. In essence, GE's genes inherently encompassed both industrial and financial attributes, with the financial aspect magnified during Welch's era. In fact, the significance of financial operations to GE was so substantial that in the 1999 Fortune 500 list, categorizing GE's business as diversified financial services, rather than electrical equipment, was vehemently protested by Welch to Fortune at that time, demanding a revision. Why was it so crucial for GE to maintain an identity as an industrial enterprise rather than a financial company? There's a hidden strategy here. Due to higher risks associated with financial firms, capital markets assign lower price-to-earnings ratios to financial firms than industrial ones. Therefore, emphasizing GE's identity as an industrial company helps support its stock price. Moreover, GE's identity as an industrial behemoth granted it a 3A credit rating for over half a century, enabling it to issue corporate bonds at remarkably low rates. Consequently, GE Capital's financing costs were much lower than typical financial institutions. Leveraging these cheap funds, it excelled in financial operations compared to its financial peers. In essence, GE's industrial identity allowed it to access low-cost funding, enabling it to smoothly conduct financial operations and earn profits far higher than its industrial sector. Investors were naturally delighted with this setup. GE had the low-risk, high credit of an industrial enterprise while reaping the high profits of the financial industry. This seemingly perfect dual-engine model made GE stocks a favorite among American investors. However, after the 9/11 attacks, GE suffered massive losses in its insurance business within GE Capital, causing a significant drop in GE stock. For the first time, investors realized that GE's dual-engine model wasn't as secure as believed. Its financial operations carried substantial potential risks, which were previously obscured by its industrial giant positioning. In the capital markets, confidence is more precious than gold. The 9/11 attacks didn't just cause direct losses of $600 million for GE, they shook investor confidence. This was the headache that truly bothered Immelt. He likened himself to someone who had just received the keys to a house, only for that house to suddenly catch fire. Part 2. Just when Immelt was scrambling to stabilize public confidence to prevent GE stock from collapsing, another unexpected event occurred, the Enron financial fraud scandal. In October 2001, shortly after the 9/11 attacks, Enron, one of the world's largest energy companies, was exposed for financial fraud. Enron's stock plummeted and a month later, the company declared bankruptcy. A GE board member later stated that for Immelt, the worst wasn't the 9/11 events but rather the Enron incident and the subsequent Sarbanes-Oxley Act implemented in response. You might wonder, why would the Enron incident impact General Electric? Enron's fraud was quite simple in essence. It involved utilizing a pyramid-like multi-layered holding chain to control a vast number of enterprises with minimal capital. Enron built an enormous organizational structure with over 3,000 subsidiaries and partnerships. It used these subsidiaries to conduct numerous related transactions. According to the U.S. Generally Accepted Accounting Principles, GAAP, if the ownership interest in a subsidiary is less than 50%, its financial statements need not be consolidated. Consequently, the liabilities of these subsidiaries were not reflected in the parent company's financial statements. This enabled Enron to inflate profits and conceal massive debts. To conceal the truth, Enron's management created an excessively complex financial structure that not only ordinary investors couldn't decipher but also confounded Wall Street analysts and accounting professors. The revelation of Enron's scandal caused a stir in the U.S. capital markets. Enron wasn't an outright fraudulent company, it still held substantial physical assets and businesses until its collapse. Moreover, Enron's accounting treatment to balance its books was compliant with accounting standards, it just cleverly exploited certain loopholes in those standards. To a certain extent, using accounting methods to embellish financial statements was a common practice among major listed U.S. companies. The Enron incident triggered a domino effect. Within a few months, Global Crossing, Tyco International, and Xerox were all exposed for financial fraud. Global Crossing and Tyco International soon declared bankruptcy. Investors couldn't help but wonder, for large industrial conglomerates with complex structures, consistent excellent performance, and intricate, opaque financial systems, would General Electric be the next to fall? This wasn't baseless speculation. In fact, external doubts about GE's opaque financial operations had long existed but were staunchly refuted by GE's top brass. GE's CFO publicly stated, "We're a very complex, diversified company that people on the outside can't understand all the details of. The investment community just needs to remember one thing, we have a lot of different businesses, and we can make them all work together to generate consistent, dependable earnings." His implicit message was that GE's investors need only be content with stock returns, they needn't delve into the specifics of how GE achieved its profits. During Welch's era, the public investors could accept this narrative. Now, however, under the dual pressures of 9/11 and the Enron incident, this explanation didn't hold up as well. According to the book's author, while GE didn't overtly falsify performance like Enron, it had been systematically dressing up its financial statements. Or, in industry jargon, GE practiced sophisticated earnings management. It's essential to understand that the industrial sector experiences business cycles. Fluctuations in the industrial cycle affect a company's annual profit. However, investors dislike volatility, they prefer companies that demonstrate stable and predictable returns each year. To investors, a company that shows inconsistent performance indicates higher business risks. Companies that consistently grow earnings for many years are deemed the superior ones. For a long time, among all industrial conglomerates, only General Electric managed to maintain a stable earnings per share. Achieving this wasn't because GE could truly escape the impact of the industrial cycle, but because it wielded the magic wand of GE Capital. GE always managed to meet its predetermined profit targets on paper thanks to GE Capital, smoothing over cyclicality. The most common method was adjusting earnings by selling and buying assets at the end of quarters to manipulate financial statements. For instance, in the autumn of 2002, GE found that its quarterly profits would fall significantly below investor expectations. It decided to sell its e-commerce business to generate $300 million in revenue, making GE's income statement appear favorable. However, the potential buyers couldn't immediately produce the required funds for the acquisition. Enter GE Capital. It bought over $200 million in corporate bonds issued by the potential buyers, allowing them to use this money to acquire GE's e-commerce business. In other words, GE lent the buyers over $200 million to purchase its own e-commerce business, fulfilling its profit targets. While this practice wasn't uncommon during Welch's era, after the Enron incident, Immelt's repetition of such actions raised widespread investor doubts. Another means by which GE adjusted its earnings was through frequent acquisitions. As mentioned earlier, GE, as an industrial company, had a higher price-to-earnings ratio. If it acquired a company with a lower price-to-earnings ratio, its profits would automatically increase. For instance, the book illustrates, if GE's P/E ratio is 40, it means that when its stock price is $40, its earnings per share are $1. If GE acquires a company with a P/E ratio of 10, then the earnings per $40 share of that company would be $4. Essentially, GE is exchanging $1 of profit for $3 of new profit, doing nothing more than completing a transaction. In essence, whenever GE's profits weren't satisfactory, acquiring a company with a lower price-to-earnings ratio immediately improved its profit structure. Where did GE get the funds for these frequent acquisitions? Industrial companies generally don't have substantial idle funds. This relied on GE Capital. As mentioned earlier, GE Capital, leveraging GE's 3A credit rating, could issue short-term bonds and commercial paper at lower rates, borrowing vast sums. This money could be used for acquisitions or to provide long-term loans at higher rates, thus earning a margin. However, in both cases, there existed a mismatch in terms. That is, GE borrowed short-term funds from the market but used these funds for long-term investments. If market conditions changed or a crisis occurred, and GE couldn't raise short-term funds from the market, it faced significant debt repayment risks. At that time, market research firms had pointed out this issue, but GE firmly insisted that such a situation was impossible. It wasn't until the third blow after September 11 and the Enron incident, the 2008 financial crisis, that it became apparent. Part 3 On September 15, 2008, at 7 p.m. on the day Lehman Brothers declared bankruptcy, U.S. Treasury Secretary Paulson, Fed Chairman Geithner, and Immelt gathered for a meeting titled General Electric's Issues. GE Capital had a significant stake in subprime mortgage business, but a more pressing challenge was the aforementioned maturity mismatch. The collapse of market confidence hindered GE Capital from smoothly issuing commercial papers to acquire short-term funds, putting General Electric on the brink of a liquidity crisis. At this critical moment, Buffett intervened, purchasing $3 billion in preferred stock of General Electric. The Fed also implemented rescue measures, establishing a commercial paper funding facility that directly bought short-term commercial papers from high-rated issuers like General Electric. Simultaneously, the U.S. government guaranteed the commercial papers issued by major companies like General Electric. Ultimately, General Electric, backed by government guarantees, issued an astonishing 4,328 commercial papers, raising $131 billion, pulling through bankruptcy. The financial crisis left severe scars on General Electric. The Federal Reserve deployed a specialized team to oversee GE Capital's financial condition, preventing it from arbitrarily adjusting group statements. More ominously, Standard & Poor's and Moody's successively downgraded General Electric's credit ratings. Losing its AAA credit rating, GE Capital faced increased financing costs, unable to generate profits and sustaining losses for 5 years post the financial crisis. The once profitable engine became a drag on performance, and the market re-evaluated General Electric's P/E ratio due to the high-risk nature of its financial enterprise, causing its stock price to languish. In light of this situation, Immelt made a bold move, initiating a significant strategic shift, selling most of GE Capital's business and returning to its industrial core. In April 2015, General Electric announced it would divest much of GE Capital, expecting to obtain $35 billion in cash. Immelt intended to use this money for two purposes: continuing to acquire quality industrial assets to fortify General Electric's position in traditional strongholds and advancing digitalization to create a world-class industrial internet platform. In Immelt's vision, if successful, these two strategic steps could replace GE Capital as new drivers of profit growth. Following the announcement, the market pinned high hopes on General Electric's strategic transformation, bolstering its stock. Unfortunately, the envisioned strategies didn't translate well into execution. Let's first address the acquisitions. In late 2015, General Electric spent $13 billion acquiring Alstom's power business in France. Alstom was dubbed France's national treasure, supplying about a quarter of global power stations' gas turbines, while General Electric held a one-third global market share. After acquiring Alstom, General Electric could nearly monopolize the global gas turbine market, generating excess profits. However, unbeknownst to Immelt, in the 2 to 3 years post-acquisition, the global power market underwent significant changes. New energy sources like solar and wind power rapidly expanded while the traditional gas turbine market continued to shrink. Pricey large turbines piled up in warehouses, unsellable. In 2017, General Electric faced a $6 billion loss, and in 2018, a $22.8 billion loss, with a significant portion stemming from its power business. By 2019, General Electric announced layoffs of over 1,000 Alstom gas turbine department employees, sparking strong protests from the French government and local labor unions. In truth, aside from acquiring Alstom, several other major acquisitions Immelt spearheaded turned out to be missteps in hindsight. Trying to strengthen General Electric's dominance in traditional sectors through acquisitions did not bear fruit. Now, let's examine the second step of General Electric's strategic transformation, the industrial internet platform, Predix. Envisioned as a platform connecting all machinery produced by General Electric, from aircraft engines to underwater oil separators and MRI machines, Predix aimed to collect, store, mine, and share data from all these devices, significantly enhancing equipment efficiency. For this, Immelt established the GE Digital department in 2015, investing $5 billion in creating its industrial internet platform. Even by General Electric standards, this was a colossal investment, equal to half the R&D budget for a new jet engine. Additionally, General Electric poured significant funds into advertising to change its public image from a traditional industrial conglomerate into a more innovative, global digital industrial company. However, Immelt saw the potential of the industrial internet platform but grossly underestimated its difficulty in realization. Various machines varied immensely in shape and usage, making it almost impossible to have a unified operating system, data protocol, and coding standard, let alone store all data in the cloud. Even achieving data sharing between similar machines was unattainable. For instance, MRI machines generated vast data in a short time, files too large to facilitate real-time data analysis, transfer, and machine learning between hospitals and clinical practitioners. Ultimately, this industrial internet platform, a multi-billion-dollar venture, didn't significantly improve General Electric's competitiveness or profits. It continued to be a money pit, requiring continuous investment. By 2017, Immelt's two major transformational strategies were deemed failures, leading to his resignation in June of that year. His successor, John Flannery, couldn't stem the tide. General Electric stocks continued to plummet, dropping below $10. It was ousted from the Dow Jones Index, and rating agencies downgraded its credit ratings again. Flannery lasted a mere 14 months, becoming the shortest-serving CEO in General Electric's history. The CEO who succeeded Flannery was called Culp. If the themes during the eras of Welch and Immelt were buy, Culp's era was marked by sell, sell, sell. Under Culp's guidance, General Electric sold its transportation business, oil and gas business, biopharmaceutical business, and even the lighting business rooted in Edison's company, aiming to alleviate General Electric's massive debt burden. However, these efforts to streamline did not stop General Electric's decline. Its stock further dropped to $7. By November 2021, General Electric announced a major restructuring plan, to split the company into three parts within a few years. GE Healthcare and GE Power would be spun off and listed independently, the original GE company would retain the aviation business, becoming a company solely focused on producing aircraft engines. This was General Electric's final attempt to discard all excess baggage and let the last three elite forces forge their own paths. Upon hearing this news, industry insiders felt deep regret. Some media comments suggested it signaled the end of an era, the disintegration of the largest, most powerful, and most complex industrial empire in human history. Looking back at this saga of General Electric's decline, one realizes that the downfall of a complex system is rarely due to a specific individual or a single decision. It's the confluence of several intricate factors. Certainly, in General Electric's rise and fall, GE capital was one crucial element. While GE capital brought high profits, it also introduced high risks and concealed the inefficiencies in the industrial sector and the lack of innovative drive. By the time General Electric wanted to wean off its financial dependency, it was too late. The times had changed. For General Electric, GE capital could be described with a Western adage, all the gifts of fate already carry a hidden price. Congratulations, you've just completed another book. Thank you for your support and attention. Please subscribe to the Tim Booker channel, like this content, and share this valuable knowledge with your friends. Let's combine wisdom with practice to achieve our financial goals and create a better future together. Thank you, goodbye.